Hello all, welcome back to the Barcelona Podcast. Francesc Tomas joining me, Dan Hilton from BarcaBlog.com, of course, bringing you the hottest breaking stories from the Camp Nou. If you are new here, please subscribe, please like us, leave us a customer review, and at any point during the podcast, of course, check out the links, exclusive deals we got, including Fubo TV, that we have shared with you in the description. Let's get right into it, Francesc. We've got a big show, and the show that I think people are excited about. You and I are going to give out our end of the season awards, and for a lot of these topics, I don't think we're going to get a lot of consternation. I think across the board, there's a lot of agreement, but I think people will disagree at times with at least one of us, because I think you and I are not going to try to pick the same one, but I think at times we're going to kind of be forced to have the same answer.
Yeah, that's right. I don't really know how this is going to pan out. We haven't spoken about our choices before the show, so let's get into it.
So the first topic is goal of the season, and I'm going to go first because I only picked one. I don't have a backup prepared, and it has to be... Now, the way I said goal of the season, I didn't think of it as like the most beautiful goal of the season or the most aesthetically pleasing goal of the season. I just thought of Sergio Roberto's last-minute effort against PSG in the second leg, basically the goal of the season. That's the one that I think, when I think of this season, I will think of Sergio Roberto sliding in and Barcelona doing the impossible and coming back against PSG.
Yeah, I was going to pick that one, but then I thought, which goal has been the most important? And while that goal was crucial in the Champions League, then we got knocked out in the next round, which was embarrassing. So I've gone for Messi's 2-3 goal at the Bernabeu. The iconic image of Messi showing his top to the Bernabeu faithful and basically nicking the 3 points at the very last minute. It's always going to be in Culés' minds for forever and ever and ever and ever. The way that he was raging, the passion that was coming through, obviously typical Messi delicatessen skill. He was hungry to make the goal stand, and it was against our eternal political and historical rival. So yeah, the only thing that obviously is disappointing is that win against Madrid in their own stadium at the very last second didn't give us a title, and that, as we've spoken in, I think it was episode 1 of our podcast, that should have been enough to get the trophy back to Barcelona. But ultimately, because of what it meant, Messi's goal at the Bernabeu for me is the goal of the season.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with either of us on this one, because while we didn't win Champions League or La Liga, the two goals we mentioned were the ones that made it all possible, and of course made the Barcelona fan community believe that both were possible. But yeah, the Messi goal was prettier than the Roberto one, and you could easily convince me, but I'd love to hear what our fans think.
Definitely.
And I'm going to keep it with Sergio Roberto for our next award, the most improved award of the season, and my pick is Sergio Roberto again for this one, where losing Dani Alves in the offseason, you wondered, what were they going to do about right back? Who were they going to bring in? Well, the answer is they didn't bring in anybody. Instead, Sergio Roberto played at right back, and particularly in the first half of the season, was absolutely phenomenal. Fit in like a glove as one of the better right backs in Europe, at least for the first few months of the year. Of course, picked up a few knocks near the end of the year, but Sergio Roberto for me was the most improved.
Yeah, I agree. We picked the same one. I thought that Roberto was indispensable. He obviously is one of the most, if not the most versatile player we've got in the Barca squad at the moment. 48 appearances, we're never going to forget about Dani Alves, because let's face it, he probably is the best right back in the next 20 years in world football. But he compensated well. He did what he had to do. Obviously, he's still really, really young, a developing player, and particularly defensively, he needs to step it up if he is going to stay in that position. But ultimately, I love his ability to get forward, how creative he's been, how he connects, and hopefully next season we can get a right back that can actually start. Aleix Vidal is a good choice. Obviously, Hector Bellerin from Arsenal for me would be a much better choice. But regardless of whether we can sign Bellerin or not, I think Roberto should move to midfield next season and challenge Rafinha and Denis Suarez for a starting spot alongside Rakitic or Iniesta.
And when you originally posed the most improved to me, I kind of thought of it two ways, where to me Sergio Roberto has made the most improvements from last season to this season. But for me, over the course of the season, Umtiti seems to be the guy for me that I would have chosen if I had gone second in picking this, just because from the start you'd think, oh, Piqué, Mascherano, those are the two starters, and Umtiti, a young defender who had never been, playing first division outside of France. Of course, he comes in the Euros over the previous summer and becomes a starter by the end of the tournament, so that kind of made Barcelona fans salivate at the prospects of Umtiti being a starter. But by the end of the season, Umtiti and Piqué are the choice. Those two are the choice, and I think over the course of the year, Umtiti basically again went from, I hope that he can become our third defender, to being the guy alongside Piqué for, you're hoping, the rest of Piqué's time at Barcelona, and we're hoping, again, the next 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm going to just mention really briefly, I think Alcácer has improved quite a bit as well. Alcácer has not had the best season. Obviously, trying to knock Neymar, Messi or Suarez out of the front three is pretty much impossible. But throughout the season, he's improved. And I think that, coming next season, he'll become much more important player. So he has improved. I don't think as much as Sergi Roberto, though.
Well, while there is always most improved, you also have to think about least improved. And Francis, I want to hear who you went with first.
Okay, the least improved award. And I've got full respect for this player. He's given us so much over the years. But I don't think Javier Mascherano is one to be improving in the future. He's obviously been captain since 2014. He's respected on and off the field, but he's just made 39 appearances this year. And when you think about the fact that that's down from 51 last season, then you have to give him the least improved award. He has looked shaky, to be honest. He's been exposed by younger, faster, and particularly taller strikers. And he struggled against forwards that basically are more hungry or more fit at this moment in time. So it pains my heart to say that Mascherano has not improved too much at all.
Yeah, at 33 years old, I think of all the conversations of what their roles are moving forward with the team that players will need to have with Valverde coming in, I think the Mascherano-Valverde conversation is probably going to be the most important one, just in terms of figuring out where that player fits. Which brings me to my pick for least improved. I picked another player over 30, and that was Arda Turan, where, again, on paper entering the year, I thought that Turan, and I think most people believe that he would be the fourth best attacker on the team. As the younger players, again, everybody sub 24 continues to work their way in to the Barcelona first team. But to me, Turan was bought to be that fourth best attacker. Again, we had mentioned it in previous podcasts. He was a star for Atletico Madrid, and while his first season he showed a little bit but not much, this year wound up actually being a regression than last year. And so we're at a point where, to me, that Arda Turan is probably the second player on the list of players that we would assume are going to leave over the summer.
Yeah, I've got I've got another rubbish award, say for Turan later on in the show. I agree with you totally. Now, let's move on to the rising star. Rising star, in my eyes, was the player that obviously not came out of nowhere, but was at a different stage in their career last season, and is one to look forward to. So, Dan, who did you pick?
Well, yeah, I thought of this in different ways. Now, by rising star, if we can talk about the rising star from this season, or are we talking about the promising player to look out for next season? I think if you talk about the rising star from this season, we already talked about him. It was Umtiti. He was the guy who wound up being that rising star. But to me, because he's already on the map, again, he started for France in that Euro final. I think you have to go with Denis Suarez to be that guy that, then maybe this is my own bias, that I hope that he is the rising star. I hope that he doesn't leave the club in the summer. I hope that he's the guy. And if not Denis Suarez, the logical choice, of course, is Carlos Aleñá. He is the guy that, where the hype train is already chewing along the tracks, and you expect that now Aleñá has that, where before it was Rafinha, it was Thiago, then Rafinha, then it's Samper, and then Aleñá is the next in line to be the guy to be kind of put that the heir to the Iniesta throne, or the Busquets throne, or the Xavi throne. So I think the guy that to look out for next season should be Denis Suarez, but I wouldn't be surprised if Denis Suarez, for some reason or another, didn't fit in Valverde's plans. And if that's the case, I would have to say it's Alenia.
Well, I really do hope that, I don't know if there is a football god beyond Messi, obviously, but if there is anyone up there, I really do hope that they listen to you, because Barca do need Denis Suarez to step up, and hopefully Alenia can be another one of the choices that Valverde can trust on a weekly basis. I went for the obvious one for the rising star. I've got Umtiti as my choice here. Obviously, hugely strong, always eager to anticipate, and he's got plenty of know-how in getting the ball up the field. 44 appearances this season, but check this out: 244 balls won. 244 in 44 appearances. That is huge. And something that was quite surprising as well, he only committed 40 fouls. Now, to me, and I've been a defender all my life, I normally played right and left back throughout my career. Didn't make headlines any time, but I've been playing for 25 years of my life, and 40 fouls in a whole season for a defender that's played 44 appearances, that speaks thousands. It speaks really, really high volume of how strong and how good he is at anticipating. Because if you are what in Spanish we say sobrado, which is you're really sort of gifted, then you don't need to foul anybody. And that, I think, is a very telling stat. So rising star for me was Umtiti.
And Francesc, I'm curious to see what your pick for the next topic is. I have a number of players on my list, but I want to hear who you pick first.
Yeah, last chance for glory award, and I'm laughing to myself, which is really sad, because I basically decided on this award, on the name. Last chance for glory to me means someone who desperately needs to step up, or else. So someone who, unless they make it next season, they should be gone. And we talked about it in a previous podcast, is Andre Gomez. Now, I know he's really young, he's very versatile, he's tall, he's got great field vision, he can attack from the midfield, but overall he's been poor. He's improved in the last, say, 10 matches, but with 48 appearances and just 2 goal assists, you can't really argue. And unless he makes a huge improvement next season, he should be gone. He's lost 316 balls in 48 matches. For a midfielder at Barca, that is embarrassing. And not only that, he only won 153 balls. So he's in short, he's lost twice as many balls as he has gotten back playing for Barca alongside Iniesta and Busquets. That's embarrassing. I wouldn't say he's one that needs to be sold this summer, but he needs a rocket, basically, and he needs to make a huge improvement right now, because otherwise his future at Barca is just not going to happen.
See, I know when I looked at this for the first time, I knew you were trying to bait me, and I knew that you named this with Gomez or Vidal in mind. Those were the two that I was thinking, that's why he made this award. So I actually went with one that I expect fans will give me a little backlash on, and my pick is actually Rafinha.
Right.
He's a different player than his brother, which I think has been known since they were, in their late teens. And he has a contract until 2020, so he still is under contract for a few more years. But Barcelona would love to know that he can have a full season where he not only stays healthy, which he's never done while playing for the first team, and that he could potentially be the guy to replace Rakitic or Iniesta, where Rafinha, if you're pining for guys coming from a youth academy, he's the guy. You of course you want Thiago, but if you want the name Alcantara in your starting 11, Rafinha would be the guy to get you there. And so I think that, while you talk about other players who, if it's Turan or a certain French defender that we haven't talked about that's not Umtiti, and we're going to get to him in a second, but Rafinha to me is the guy that if he can't seem to really establish himself, and even if he's not the guy who supplements Iniesta or Rakitic in the starting 11. He should at least be the guy that Valverde looks at his bench and goes, oh, Rafinha has to be in this game. I want to get this guy into 50 appearances in a season.
I have to admit, I hadn't thought about Rafinha for this award, but hearing what you're saying, you do have a point. Now, the last sort of detail that I add here, Rafinha has followed Luis Enrique over the last 4 or 5 seasons. We can't forget that Rafinha and Luis Enrique were together at Celta. They were together at Barca B, and they were together here this year. Now, with Luis Enrique gone and Rafinha staying, we're really gonna have to see whether Valverde trusts him or not, because in a way Rafinha is without his, in Catalonia we say enchufado, which is a player who relates and really sort of needs their coach to play. I don't know if there's such a word in English, but enchufado is what Rafinha has been. He's been sort of linked or networked to the coach, and now that coach is leaving. We'll have to see. Now, let's move on to the next point. The most underrated player award. So the player who sort of goes under everyone's radar, and I like to hear what you've got to say, Dan. Most underrated player.
Well, I think there were some pretty good choices. Of course, Jordi Alba and Busquets every single year are top choices. Busquets, while he was poor at the beginning of the year, you noticed how essential he had become again to the team when he finally rounded into form, particularly the way Barcelona looked without him in the Champions League. But I think for me, the choice, and it's surprising for an underrated player, but for me, it's got to be PK. Because I know it seems like, as you had mentioned earlier, that the Barcelona defense just was not up to snuff. They conceded too many goals, but PK's form throughout most of the year was, other than the 2014-15 season, probably the best form that we've seen the Spanish defender in the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. I really have to agree with that. I was debating between Piqué and my actual choice for these awards, and Piqué has been excellent. The thing is, and we mentioned it last time as well, because he gets involved in this stupid Twitter emoji wars with Sergio Ramos and some loser from Real Madrid, then that takes away from the fact that he has been excellent throughout. He's been the rock at Barca's backline, and if Umtiti has been as successful as he has been, is because he's got Piqué alongside him. Now, I want to talk about my choice for the underrated player, which is Ter Stegen. We can't forget that last season Ter Stegen wasn't really playing in the league, because that obviously was Claudio Bravo's was the starting there, had the starting spot at that time, and with Claudio Bravo gone, which was one of the talking points last summer, Ter Stegen has been excellent with the ball at his feet. He's a genius. He's a player that is excellent right now, but he's only going to get better in the future. We can't forget he's been at the top level since the age of 19, and he's growing in stature. That doesn't mean getting taller, but sort of in the sort of soul sort of way. He's becoming a leader. He understands Spanish really well. He can communicate with his defense much better than he could before. And he has started every game in La Liga and the Champions League. Obviously, 37 goals received in 38 matches in the Spanish league is not great. He's only kept 13 clean sheets. But the point I want to make is that 2.8 key saves he's made per game. 2.8. And when you look at teams like, say, and no disrespect, but to like Chelsea or Manchester United, that they are teams who don't play as attacking as us, arguably. Having 2.8 key saves as a Barca goalkeeper is actually really high, and I do think Ter Stegen deserves the underrated player award because people just take him for granted most of the time.
Yeah, I would agree. Where I think his reputation when he first arrived at Barcelona and kind of proved true in his first year was that he gave up a lot of easy goals, and he was too ambitious. He came out too far, and that got him exposed. You look back to that when they played the goal that Roma had scored a few years ago through Florenzi on the wing, where that 40-50 yard chip over Ter Stegen. I think they had worries that he wasn't the number one keeper, but Ter Stegen has quickly become, even for the German national team, the guy that's now finally pushing Manuel Neuer. And of course, other fans who of both Barcelona and the German national team will say, of course, Lino is a choice as well, but Ter Stegen is an absolutely wonderful pick. And as I've been so biased on former shows to say that I would hope that Ter Stegen does go to the German national team camp and kind of talk up Barcelona as a potential place for some of those very good German midfielders, defenders, and you look at the pipeline, particularly of young German players, and if Ter Stegen was able to help out in that respect as well, I think it would make the club even better. As we, again, talked another positive thing, we'll go a little bit more negative now with another award in Best Days Behind Them, and I think you and I probably have the same answer.
I don't know. Go for it.
Well, of course, we haven't talked about him. Now we're on week 4, and this is the first time anybody has mentioned Jeremy Mathieu. And so I think that kind of tells you all you need to know. He played well in his first season, and just this year just did not have it. Even the time that he got in limited minutes, he just didn't seem to be up to snuff. And maybe that is, again, a player who's come so out of form because he doesn't get first-team time. But he also had injuries. Again, he's also nearing his mid-30s. So between age and not playing and injuries, Mathieu just really did have a failure of a season at Barcelona. So for me, I think we've seen the best of Jeremy Mathieu at Barcelona.
Yeah, and the best wasn't that great anyway. 16 appearances this year. I think that's all you need to know. And obviously, 4th pick behind Umtiti, who's been fantastic, and Mascherano, who hasn't been that great. So, yeah, horrendous season. I still don't understand why we signed him in the first place. He had a job to do in the first season, but he was never one to prove himself. And yeah, best days behind him, without a doubt. Let's move on to the next one then. We've got the Miss You Always award. Dan, who do you go for?
You might as well just have written the Dani Alves award, Francesc. Because I know that's what it... I mean, other than Dani Alves, I think I'm going to purposely not choose Dani Alves because he is the only choice. Dani Alves, of course, Roberto was good at right back, but Dani Alves is one of the best right backs, as we've mentioned many times already, in the world, and he showed us again playing for Juve. The other choices were Munir and Sandro Ramirez, and so I think that I might have to go with Sandro Ramirez simply because, again, the non-Dani Alves choice, because Sandro Ramirez was banging in goals aplenty for Malaga. And I think there are times in the season, particularly at the beginning, when Alcacer just does, when he wasn't clicking, there was really no other, out-and-out striker or an additional winger to come in and to get some goals. And while again, you can prophesize that if he had stayed at Barcelona, he just wouldn't have found his form. And of course, getting all the minutes he did helped him achieve the goal-scoring records that he did. But Sandro Ramirez, I think, could have been useful at times this year. And Marc Bartra is another player that I thought about, but just due to the success of Umtiti, Bartra wound up being, not missed as much as I would have liked to, miss Marc Bartra.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on the last one. I think Bartra has done really well in Germany. He's a very likable player. He's a very likable guy. He was never a starter at Barca. He was trusted, particularly during Martino's season, quite a lot. But he could never really break the team. And I'm just delighted he's getting playing time. I think for him, and for us even, it's better if he's away and building his confidence really and his career away from the Camp Nou. Now in 4 or 5 years, could he come back? Without a doubt he could, but I'm just happy that he's developing elsewhere and finally being happy with life and success and having found his spot. Now my choice was not Dani Alves. My choice was Xavi. I went for Xavi. I think Barca desperately needed Xavi this season. As you sort of touched on earlier, Turan should have been the 4th midfielder and he was nowhere to be seen. Rafinha has been good when he's been here and healthy, but he's just not at that caliber. And Denis Suarez hasn't sort of established himself. So I think Xavi, having someone who can control games, having someone who, all right, fair enough, he was never going to speed up the game in his last season at Barca, but when he came in, you knew that he was going to make 1-2 key passes, you knew that we were going to have control of the ball, and that is someone that you could always rely on. So I think Xavi will always be missed, even if he wasn't sort of peak 2008 Xavi, but the Xavi of 2015-16 would have been really useful this season, particularly in La Liga.
So you threw me a monkey wrench there where I thought it was just from last season. So I mean, since neither of us wound up picking Dani Alves, I think, all fans have to do is comment with Dani Alves, and you've won the argument with both of us.
Yeah, but Xavi is eternal. So although he may not have left last season, Xavi is part of who we are. Xavi is in our blood. He's like Puyol. He's part of who we are. He's like an extra leg, if you want to call it that.
So can I change my answer to Puyol at this point? Is that okay?
That doesn't qualify. No, because otherwise you win the argument, and that's not the point. Right, let's move on. Special mention award. This is a player who wouldn't have gotten a Player of the Season award, but is someone who needs a special mention for whatever reason. So this award was pretty open to interpretation, and I'm just curious about who you picked for this one, Dan.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily sure what you had meant by this one, but I went with Javier Mascherano scoring his first goal for the club.
All right.
In the 7-1 win over Osasuna in April, he had made close to 250 appearances for Barcelona, and he finally gets his first goal. So that was always one of those things where, from week to week, you'd hear a commentator. If you ever saw Mascherano in the box, a commentator would say, still waiting for his first Barcelona goal. And so finally, after being, and that's something you'd like to see, for particularly for defenders, having such a tough commitment and a guy that's been so unselfish, never trying to get the ball in the back of the net on his own, always trying to help everybody else for the last more than a half decade. Mascherano finally getting his goal, I think, is plenty of kudos and a special mention.
Yeah, and we were really happy that Mascherano finally got the goal. He would tell you, and I'm sure that this will come up at some point, he would tell you he would have much rather not scoring from the penalty spot. But, that's what happened, and he took the penalty and scored it, and we're delighted for it. And as I said earlier, although I did pick him for one of the sort of not very positive awards earlier, he's really beloved in Barcelona. He's done so well for us over the years, and it was great to see him smiling for once, because he's normally quite stressed out, isn't he? Smiling for once, which is great. And last thing I'll say about Mascherano, I think he's going to be a Barca manager in the, I don't think too far away future. He's got all the skills. He knows the club really well. He's got respect from his teammates and the media and the fan base. So in the future, I think you'll see Mascherano sat on the bench wearing a tie, without a doubt. The special mention award for me was Luis Suarez. I didn't sort of take it the way that you did, although thinking about it, your award was more interesting than mine. I just went for Suarez because for me he was not the Player of the Season, but he's someone that wouldn't have fitted in any of the other awards. He was constantly scoring, creating goals for others. I like his fighting quality, his fighting spirit. He's always trying hard. He's a winner through and through. 51 appearances this season. So, like Messi, he never really rests. Scoring 38 goals. Obviously, he scored 59 the previous season, but that was extraordinary. So 38 goals for the Barca striker is a very good return. I really like the fact that he can create 16 goals for other people, so 16 assists. And a point that I thought was quite interesting, he won back 95 balls. So although he's the striker, he keeps pestering defenders and trying to force them into errors, which is great. I love his partnership with Messi on and off the pitch. They're clearly good friends, and Messi has recently lost Pinto, the goalkeeper that used to have been with us for pretty much the best part of the last decade. And I think Messi having personal connections within the squad is crucial, and that Luis Suarez definitely provides him with that, which is great. And Suarez's winning spirit, no nonsense attitude, and high expectations from himself and everyone around him, I think should be enough to get him this special mention award.
Well, he was a candidate for the next award on my list, but for a different reason than you may think. First, as I introduced the Flop of the Season award, Francesc, I want to know your pick because I want to know what you mean, and I can almost guarantee that I took it a different way than you did.
Okay. Flop of the season award for me is a player that did not meet expectations. It's a player who fans basically not hate. Hate is a really strong word, but a player that disappointed throughout. I'm gonna go for a player that actually scored 13 goals this season. That is Arda Turan. He's the star of the Turkish national side. He's supposed to be a strong character with plenty of creativity and a match-winning player, blah, 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 blah. Well, Barca fans have seen nothing of that. Only 18 out of 38 matches played in La Liga, which tells you that he wasn't even trusted to be a backup player for most of the season. Not that long ago, so a couple of summers ago, 34 plus 7 million euros we paid Atletico Madrid for him. So a potential 41 million euros for a player that only plays 18 matches adds pretty much nothing to the squad. He scored 13 goals, as I said just now, but he didn't score any of them when it truly mattered. Where was he in the Champions League quarterfinals? Where was he at the end of La Liga? He was nowhere to be seen. He should have been a regular starter. He should have been pushing Rakitic and Iniesta for the starting spot. He came nowhere near close. And to say I'm disappointed with his signing is an understatement. He's just a glorified bench warmer and really has to leave right now. If anyone would pay us some money, that would be great. Thank you very much. Apparently he's got offers from China, and I really do hope that the club come to their senses and they sell him to the highest bidder, because to say I'm disappointed doesn't come close.
Yeah, if they could get like 25 million to 30 million euro from a Chinese club, I think that would hope an amount that Barcelona fans will have to be happy for after, the difficulties he had in the last 2 seasons now.
Yeah, without a doubt. Words escape me. He was the star at Atletico Madrid, and he was coming to a team with Messi, Neymar, and Suarez, and Iniesta, and Busquets around him, and the guy's done nothing. So I'm actually quite annoyed. But hey.
Now, Frances, for the flop of the season award, though, I figured you meant it more as a player that didn't succeed, but I took it literally. And when I thought of flop, I thought I had to find the best flop by a player this season. That's
not what I meant at all, but that's quite funny. So yeah, go with that.
So the one I went with, of course, I think our 2 big candidates for my version of flop of the season award were obviously our young, fun Brazilian winger in Neymar, and then of course the Uruguayan striker Luis Suarez. Those 2, again, being in the opposing box so often, having the dynamism that they have. Were both candidates to always go down with the slightest bit of contact. So my favorite Neymar flop of the season came in the first leg of the PSG matchup, where Angel Di Maria, of course, tries to take the ball off him, coming in almost from his over his right back shoulder, and Di Maria goes to ground, gets the ball first, and then Neymar tries to basically sit on top of Di Maria and take the contact, but Di Maria stops moving and stops his slide, so there really never any contact. So Neymar, realizing that there isn't any contact but have already committed to basically going to the ground, he, from a sitting position, catapults himself about 2 or 3 feet in the air and somehow gets the whistle. So for me, again, in defense of your club, you're always going to say, our players don't flop, our players are always honest, and by and large, Barcelona has been very lucky to have players like Iniesta and Messi who, they get battering rammed and they never go to ground, so Barcelona fans can always say, our players don't flop, our players don't use the dark arts of football. But Neymar this season, on occasion, he liked to flash that he knows how to use the, very much like Chelsea's Diego Costa, but not even close to that level. But Neymar, he has a little bit of the dark arts in him as well, and he showed it against Di Maria.
Yeah, flopping is embarrassing, ultimately. I don't agree with it at all. At Barca, obviously, we've got possession of the ball. Players try to dribble all the time, and particularly Neymar in the wings, he's always going to get fouled, or most of the time he's going to get fouled because he's just basically too good, too speedy to stop any other way. But when there's no contact whatsoever, seeing a Barca player flop and just throw themselves to the floor and complaining is not very good. Doesn't send the right message to kids in Catalonia or beyond, and it should stop. But it is part of the game, and Real Madrid do it all the time as well. There's a particular Portuguese number 7 who is an expert at it, and he seems to be winning lots of Ballon d'Ors as a result. So obviously, if they do it, we're going to do it as well. But it's not something that makes football any better, and it should be eliminated. But until referees against Madrid and Barca and the rest of the other thousands of clubs around the world treat flopping the same way, then we're just going to have to play the game.
Yeah, that's very true. So our final award of this episode is our Player of the Season award. This is one I figured you would just name the Lionel Messi award.
Yeah, I was actually gonna call the whole of the show the Messis. like the Oscars. But I thought, because we're only on our 4th or 5th show, I don't think that will catch on really quickly. But I think next season, this episode needs to be recalled the Messis. So yeah, it's quite obvious, I think, who we're going to pick here. But Dan, you go first. Yeah,
we can call this one the first inaugural Messi Awards because it always culminates in our Player of the Season award. And, while it would be interesting to try to, again, go through the advanced numbers and the metrics and try to figure out who had a better season than Messi, even if someone had a better statistical season, even if Luis Suarez was able to outscore him, or Neymar outscored him, or Gerard Piqué wound up winning Defender of the Year or something like that. In any season, I don't see how it's not Lionel Messi. And to go back to our very first award that we handed out in the goal of the season, that goal that Messi scored against Real Madrid just shows you, again, just how he is the talisman of this club, how he is what makes the club tick, and the club goes as Messi goes. And even when the club is crashing out of the Champions League, and while Messi didn't score against Juventus, again, that Juventus defense, we'll see them in the Champions League final against Real Madrid. Messi just shows you game in and game out that it only takes him 1 minute or 30 seconds of magic to completely turn a game on its head, and he still, at the ripe old age of 29 this past season, continued to do that game in and game out.
Exactly, and Cristiano Ronaldo may very well win the Champions League in Cardiff over the weekend, and he may very well get his next Ballon d'Or. But ultimately, everyone who understands football knows that Lionel Messi is the best player in the world right now, and arguably, and I don't think it's even an argument, the best player to ever play football. He's perfect. He's technically perfect. He's unselfish. He's speedy. He's composed. He always steps up when the team needs him, and he tends to be scoring quite a lot of goals. He's made 52 appearances this year, scoring 55 goals and giving away 17 more, so 17 goal assists. Messi this season had to step up his game because Neymar and Suarez, they both had dry spells during the season at different points, but Messi has been consistent throughout. I think the more Messi takes control of the game and the team, the least successful Barca is at some points. And I know that's a controversial point, but I'll argue it now. Seeing a lot of Messi means that the other players around him have not been at the level that they should be in order to become champions of Europe and champions of the world again. So I would rather see less of Messi and see more of the others. But this season, Messi has had to step up because the midfield hasn't been as good as they should have. And arguably Neymar and Suarez have been a step below their own selves in the previous season. So if Messi has stepped up as player of the season, it's simply because the people around him just haven't had their best. And having a player who's able to do that with such ease is little short of magical. Of course, Messi could have been more influential against PSG, could have been more influential against Juventus, but still, he's head and shoulders above the rest of the team. And if anyone can ever come up with a way to clone humans, I think Lionel Messi should be the first one to to go through the procedure. We need Messi to stay at Barca forever, and we had 11 of him. I wouldn't complain too much.
Yeah, we'll just have to add a few more inches to the defender versions of Messi, but
well, Jordi Alba is quite good.
That's very true. Yeah, on the wings, of course. And I agree with every point you make, and we can in the future. I think we'll probably get into the pros and cons of Messi dependence. And again, while you look at it and it's a negative that everyone that he needs to perform for Barcelona to win, but the whole point is that Barcelona is an elite club in the world because of Messi, and that's the pro to that you have a guy that you can always rely on in Lionel Messi. And of course, as we try to do, we wrapped it up with Lionel Messi. So those are all of our awards of the season. So we ask you at home, did we miss any players for any of our top awards? Let us know in the comments section. Put it on Facebook or YouTube. You can even, again, reach out to us as well in a customer review on iTunes. Because, again, those help us out as well, and they help build the Barcelona Podcast community. And you can definitely connect with us and everybody else in the comment sections on those pages. Ask us questions for future shows and keep this thing moving. So, again, we want to thank you for listening. Definitely subscribe to our podcast. And we already mentioned customer reviews and everything else. And if you know anybody who loves Barcelona as much as you do and as much as we do, let them know. Share this podcast, and you can hit the like button as well. And visit our website. See exclusive deals like our Fubo TV that is in the description and at thebarcelonapodcast.com. As the Barcelona Podcast, of course, bringing you the hottest breaking stories from the Camp Nou. And Francesc, as we always like to say,
Forza Barça!